he started waving his hand in circular motion. And, you know, I'm sitting down there, and although there are tall people, but I'm looking to the side to see what is going on, because it's my first time, I don't know anything what is going to happen. And I see something growing out of the palm, and there's a ring at the end of this, which had actually come out of the palm very slowly, like the atoms are depositing and is growing. I saw that.
Before that, my husband Chit had an interview, and Swami had asked us to move to India.
Wow.
That we did.
Right then and there you did it. In 92?
In 92.
Well, that's a lot of faith. That's a mountain-sized amount of faith.
I think we were very fortunate that he was guiding us and telling us to do something. So it wasn't a matter of, you know, choice. I mean, we were happy that we didn't have a choice.
But then, talking about doubts, which you mentioned earlier on, doubts can arise in the mind. And this is exactly what happened to me. I have my doubts a few minutes ago. He calls you for an interview straight away and clears your doubt in a flash.
I think what you have to offer is just perfect for so many people.
Chit and Aggarwal, thank you so much. This is a treat the Soul Journeys has been waiting for a long time, because it's been way too many years since we visited you last, because people always want to know how long-time devotees first even heard Baba's name or saw his form and then came to his side. So do you want to describe that for us?
I'm not a seasoned devotee, Ted. I've seen people here who have been with Swami for more than half a century. We first heard about Baba in 1990, and he just came into our life just like that at that moment. It was perhaps a chance, is there any such thing as chances. After a break of about 9 years, we happened to call one of Jit's friends in England, and we had lost in touch completely for a long time. And he insisted that we visit him. We visited him, and the whole weekend he only talked about Baba. And we didn't know anything about Baba. I think Jit felt differently, but at the end of that weekend, I knew that whatever he had said is true, and I was so excited that here is a chance of seeing God walking on 2 feet on earth.
Before Swami came into your life, how did you know to give such credibility to what you were hearing in such a short period of time?
I can't take any credit for that. I think it's only Swami. Because, I mean, as a child, I used to think it was so nice for those people who were there when Krishna was there. And I knew it would never be in my lifetime that Krishna would ever come again. So when I hear this was the first time, then I think it is Swami only who told me it's true.
Did you grow up necessarily a religious or spiritual person? Did you do pujas? Were you very much involved with activities?
As a child, yes. My mother was very religious. But I think our religious activities, pujas, were minimal really. A few minutes of, lighting the lamp and praying to God every day, and just celebrating the Hindu festivals in the manner that I had seen in my childhood. But nothing more than that.
And even though you don't call yourself a seasoned devotee, and I think other people might argue with that term a little bit with you, how has Swami injected himself into your life to the point where he's changed your life? Would you say your life has changed or transformed in any way?
Very much so. Very much so. He brought us from where we were living in England at that time with a very materialistic kind of life, and he brought us to Prashanti within a matter of a few years.
And you've been living in the same flat for many years now.
In this flat, yes.
I mean, I remember coming here, it must be at least 11, 12 years ago.
Yes, he gave it to us in 93, and since 97 we have been living here.
So, how are you a different person today, the material things aside, than before Swami came into your life?
I don't know how to answer that, but I know I'm different. My priorities in life are different.
Well, that's significant.
Yes. I mean, The material things no longer matter to me like they used to. Maybe it has come as I'm older, I don't know. But I certainly see myself as a different person.
And how has your life changed, if at all, with the passing of Sai Baba's physical form coming up on 2 years ago?
Well, it was quite a shock when it happened. I think that month when Swami was in hospital was, just from despair to hope, hope to despair. And I clung on to every word that came on the bulletins about Swami's health. We were hoping that there would be a miracle, Swami would come. And even sitting in bhajans, I would think Swami could walk any moment, car could bring him. But it was not to be. So when it happened on 24th of April, my life just suddenly collapsed. Because Swami at that time had become everything for us. He was the head of our family. We would go to him for advice even on little things, let alone big things. So it was all taken away just like that. So a few months were very difficult. But then we knew that Swami hasn't really left us, because in very small things he would show his presence, his guidance, his support. And then I knew that we have to build on what he gave us. And he gave a lot to us. In the 17, 18 years that we knew him, he gave a lot to us. So we knew at one time he had said, think with your conscience, when we asked him directions for something. So I knew this is what he wants us to do now, not rely physically on his advice, on his guidance, but think with our conscience. And now I feel that he hasn't really left us, which I still miss the physical form very much, but I know he hasn't left us, he's there. He's continuously guiding us, not in big things, because nothing big has happened, but in little everyday things, why I suddenly change my mind from one thing to the other. And then later on I think, well, that was Swami guiding me to go this way and not that way.
Jit taught at Oxford, you lived in England. Why not go back? Might be a question many devotees from America might ask, for example.
But why go back?
But you don't have access to Swami's physical form.
But he's here, he gave us something which is very worthwhile to do. And this is our life, this is our home. We do visit, we do go sometimes for several months. But as far as home is concerned, this is our home. You don't leave your home for something else.
And we'll get into the work, the very worthwhile work that you've been doing for a long time. But let's just assume one day you got an inner directive from Swami, it's time to retire, just relax and enjoy. I think that's what people want to know. Why do so many people who are retired from even the seva they did when Swami was here in the physical form, why they still stay? Now, I understand the nostalgic reasons, but you're saying that why not stay here is your answer, it sounds like.
Well, this is our home. If Swami one day says, retire from this work, we would, if this is what his direction is. But if he says, go away from here, we will. He called us here. In one interview in January 97, he said, come and live here. This is your home. Your other place is just a rental place. And I know this is our home. If he says, leave your home and go there, we'll gladly do that.
That's well put. Thank you, Haim. Yeah. We're going to find out now what's on the mind of your husband, Jit. Jit, your turn. How did you get to Baba's side?
Well, I think, as Hema described earlier on, I had not known anything about Baba, and it wasn't that I was sort of a spiritual seeker or I was looking for God or anything like that at all. It was really a stroke of luck that we found him. And one fine morning I got up and suddenly I decided to ring up a friend of mine who was a doctor in England. We were living in England at the time. And he said to me, "Oh, Jit, you should come and see us. We haven't seen each other for more than 9 years. And actually, he was my flatmate earlier on. So we were very close. Our families were very close. So I said to him, oh, no, I think just now very busy. But he persuaded me to go and see him that weekend. We agreed, both of us, in fact the whole family, we went. And I was thinking, well, we've not been in touch for so many years, so we can catch up on our old times, because that's what you think about. We are living in the ordinary world, the world that I knew, and nothing beyond that. But funny enough, he did not talk about anything except Baba the whole time. In fact, to the point that when we were leaving them on a Sunday evening, because we went there on Friday evening and we spent the whole weekend, that his wife, Diana, said to me, I'm sorry, Jit, we spoiled your weekend. I don't know. And she said, I don't know what happened to him. He never talks about Baba to anybody.
And to a lot of people that would be a turnoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he said, but he talked about nothing except Baba the whole time. Morning till evening, Saturday, Sunday, and Friday night included. And of course, when we arrived at his house, there were pictures of Baba around everywhere. And during a conversation, he said to me, oh, Baba, he materialized these earrings for Diana. And I was thinking, because with my scientific background, I'm thinking, what is he talking about? During these 10 years, 9-10 years, while we've been out of touch, he's gone crazy to tell me something can be materialized out of thin air. There was no way I was going to believe that. Obviously, with my scientific mind. But
what did you teach at Oxford?
Well, I was actually, I think, I don't know whether I mentioned to you, but my background is that I'm a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And I had graduated from India, moved to England immediately after graduation. And I went to Bristol first, where I did my doctorate in mechanical engineering. And then I was offered a teaching post in Oxford, and I was teaching there. And also I was doing some research into internal artificial organs, and at the same time teaching.
So your scientific background simply had no room for materializations out of the blue.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was no way I was prepared to believe that. And in fact, at that moment, in my mind, I said to myself, well, if such a person exists on this earth, who can actually materialize out of the thin air, I want to meet him. I really do. But if on the other hand, I find out, well, that it all trickery and magic, etc., then I better save my friend from the clutches of this guy who is, pulling a fast one on him. Because I had noticed at the time that on his desk there was a check for £6,000. I still remember that, which had written out to Baba. And I thought, my God, we are talking about 1990.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. And he's giving that to Baba. Obviously, Baba is, has got some kind of magic on him. So I, obviously, I decided I must really go and find out.
And we should put out that Baba never asks for money, but people sometimes find their heart pulled to donate money.
That is very true. Since then I've learned, but I did not know at that time, because I had heard about many other gurus. And in fact, there have been gurus who have come to England, and I went to one of them. He used to be called Guru Maharaj Ji, one of those first one I did. And he was a 16-year-old guy. And when I went to him, to be able to listen to him, you had to give 1 week's salary.
Oh, my
and I thought, and I was a student, so I thought, oh well, that's not for me. So, like that, there were other gurus who had visited England, and I've known that there are many fake gurus who come.
And to the contrary, Baba often would not even accept donations from people.
Well, actually, funny you should say that, because this particular check, later I discovered, he had posted to Baba. It had come back to him because Baba didn't accept it.
There you go.
So,
continue with this story.
But I did not know that at that time. Anyway, so that was in July 1990. And in August 1990, I was in Prashanti Nilayam. So, obviously, Baba moved very fast to pull me out here. I didn't know anything about the ashram. I've never been to any ashram in India or anywhere else. First time, and I come, and of course, because I don't know any people here, it was fortunate that my friend had offered that he would put us up in his room. He had his wife with him, but I stayed with them for a week. hoping to expose this person. And I must say that, my mind was only on materializations, because that is where it all started. So when he's coming for darshan, from a distance, I will see sometimes, his hand is going around and he's materializing vibhuti. I see something fall. But then I think, of course, the magicians also do that.
Yeah.
Actually, I used to be very interested in magic.
Okay.
And I had seen the biggest magician in India one time. Amazing magicians I'd seen. So I thought, well, this is nothing. And then one day, I see there are some sweets flying into the air. See, with Baba just flew his hand there, and sweets going everywhere. So at the end of that darshan, I asked my friend, I said, I saw some sweets today were flying in the air. And he said, yes, Baba materialized those. I said, oh, yes, amazing. And then I talked to a few other people who had been in that darshan. And they told me, oh, no, people bring sweets for, blessing. And Baba sometimes...
grab them and throw them away, yeah.
Throw them away. And then I thought to myself, oh, well, definitely, because I talked to a few people, whereas my friend told me otherwise. So I thought, well, I know he's definitely wrong on this occasion. Therefore, I was quite convinced that whatever he has told me so far is not true. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I didn't witness any other kind of materialization. So in a way, I was a little disappointed because I couldn't be sure about vibhutis from a distance, and anyway, anybody can do that, I felt. But I think, there was something inside I felt. Something, a feeling of peace and the serene atmosphere. I thought, well, there's something about this place. I like to be here, but I'm not able to find what I came for, Anyway, I was here for a week, went back home, and I think by the time I went back home, I felt I want to go back to this place. And the same year, in December, myself, my wife, the 3 children, and my father, all 6 of us, we arrived in Prashanti. Now, you see, when we came, we are of course staying in a shed, because that's the only place you get.
Back then it must have been a handful of rupees a night for people.
That's true, but I think, that is what I think something like 5 rupees or something. Yeah. Very cheap, of course, living there. But that wasn't the issue with us, so fortunately. But I think what had happened is that when I had gone back to England, I was talking to some of the friends of mine there. And there was one friend of ours. He was he was sort of very interested in Baba, and he told us quite a lot, gave us some books, and also showed us videos and things like that. So we were getting into it, but not really. I was not able to prove to myself that he can materialize thing out of thin air, and that was the crux for me. That was the main point. Anyhow, we came here. And we were here for about 4 or 5 days, can't remember exactly, but 4 or 5 days. And you see, we were hoping, because when I talked to my friends back in Oxford, one of the friends said to me that I would like to start a Baba center. Mm-hmm. And because he had given me books and shown me videos, I had got interested in that idea. But he wanted to start a center, but he said that I will only start the center if Baba gives his blessings. Well, I didn't understand what he meant by blessing, but that's what he said. So we were here for 5 days, and at the end of that, of course, I didn't witness any special thing. Baba never called us, which is what you don't expect anyway. But when the last darshan finished, we were going back to our flat. So I used to meet the ladies will come out of the other side, and we are coming from the other side, and we are sort of meeting and then walking back. So we are walking past the accommodation office and that direction. Suddenly, I was a little ahead. My family were a little bit behind me because I was walking a little faster. Suddenly I see one red car, and it went past me. Not exactly past me, but it was slowing down and sort of walking, the car was on the right side of me. So I suddenly happened to see the window the window was wound down, and I suddenly see this is Baba sitting in that car, but there is not a soul in sight. I'm the only one. And so I looked at the window, and Swami had a big smile on his face, and he raised his hand, which was supposed to be a blessing hand, but I didn't know that. I thought, oh, and rather than bow down to Swami, all I could manage was a bow, so I went like that, the usual style you would do in the West, because I didn't realize he was blessing me. And then his face, big smile, and the car sped away. And then everybody was running behind the car, of course, realizing, oh, there's Baba sitting in this car. It's a tiny little red car. So at that point, I didn't understand what it was, because I just thought, oh, well, I saw Baba, so what, And that was the end of our trip. When I went back to Oxford, this friend of mine was very keen on starting a center. When I told him what had happened, he said, well, you don't understand. That is the blessing for the center. That's what we were seeking. That's what we were praying for. Well, okay. So, in fact, they decided that they will start a center in Oxford, Baba Center, on the 1st of April, 1991. He didn't have a place. So I offered, because we had quite a big house, so I offered a place. I said, okay, you start the center from our house. And then we started study circle and the bhajans, etc. So I think this is, you get into things. We started reading books and started finding out more about Baba, and started feeling, well, we want to go back to Prashanti Nilayam again, and so on,
Yeah.
So
what I want to do, I think, is follow up with Haim on this, because I have a question that's a burning question about the difference between Easterners and Westerners when it comes to being Sai Baba devotees. So, Haim, here this group is starting to meet on a regular basis, I suspect weekly or so in your house.
Yes, weekly.
You have these people coming in who are strangers to you. How did you go with that? You already had Baba pretty much figured out in your mind and in your heart, and all these people are coming into your house now.
No, I think that was very nice actually for all of us, for us too and our 3 children. Because when you see something good, you feel something is good, you want to share it with the whole world.
Yeah.
So our house was open to everybody who wanted to know about Baba or come and talk about Baba. So I think it was a great blessing for us. This is how we looked upon it.
I have a 2-part question. Many times in Sai groups all over the world, depending on where you are, depending on who's involved with it, there's a heavy proportion of it given over to bhajans, devotional singing. Mm-hmm. Did you both come from a traditional Hindu background where that was a major part of your practice?
I think we are from traditional Hindu background, but we also wanted to know more intellectually about Baba and spiritual matters. So what we had was, the 1 week was study circle. We used to meet every Monday. Every other week it was bhajans. So we had a good mix of both.
Yeah. In my experience, the groups that we started, we started one in our own home, and other groups, there seemed to be a real divide, whereas the Indian Americans preferred the devotional singing, and Baba always said that's a path to God. That's a very, very powerful path to God. Another was to repeat the name of the Lord, path to God. But another was study circles, which Baba invented in a way that really made sense and really helped to answer those burning questions people had in their mind. The majority of groups I was in were almost entirely study circles, which I enjoyed. I really enjoyed that. Not coming from an Eastern background, I didn't know much about bhajans to begin with. Lots of people dive right in and they're fine with it. And I just wanted to know how you handled that, and you just described it pretty well.
Well, our group was actually half and half. 50% Indian, people of Indian origin, and 50% Westerners. So I think we were a good mix, and all the Westerners who were there, they liked singing as well.
Yeah.
And they were actually the best singers, the better singers. We learned from them the bhajans rather than us teaching them, really. And so I think we really enjoyed both.
And then, when did you first get up an idea, if you did at all, that maybe it would be nice to go to see Sai Baba in Prashanti with other devotees from your group? Did you ever go as a group with other people?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
I think it happened too soon that Swami called us to India. So then, though we went back to Oxford for a few months every year, but it wasn't a matter of us coming as a group.
And describe for us the first time you had an encounter with Baba. where he stopped and looked at you and asked you some questions, and maybe he said, after he nodded his head, go, which means go in for an interview. Just some of the early memories of your first connections with him.
I mean, he gave me a few dreams before I actually saw Baba in an interview, and that was in August 92. Before that, my husband Chit had an interview, and Swami had asked us to move to India.
Wow.
That we did.
Right then and there you did it. In 92?
In 92.
Well, that's a lot of faith. That's a mountain-sized amount of faith.
I think we were very fortunate that he was guiding us and telling us to do something. So it wasn't a matter of, choice. I mean, we were happy that we didn't have a choice. So and then in August 92, Swami called us as a family for an interview. And that was the first time I was ever close to Swami in the, physically.
Do you remember what he said in that interview?
Well, I mean, he told me I'm basically of very worrying nature, worry about the children, and so he said, you have no worries, I will look after your children, and that was quite a big relief. And then at the end of the interview, when I asked Swami for Pad Namaskar, he said, yes, do, but I've given you Pad Namaskar twice before. And Chit immediately thought, it's the first time she's here. How has he given her Namaskar twice? But I knew what he meant, because in the dreams, I had two vivid dreams before, where Swami gave me Namaskar.
So he immediately validated.
Yeah, he validated.
That must have changed. You didn't have to be changed. It must have taken your faith even deeper.
Yes, I think it's always the little things Swami did for us, and how he showed what our innermost thoughts were, or if we needed something without saying, he would tell or give. That actually built my faith.
And one final
further.
question before we go back to Chit, and this is about Chit. I remember sitting in this room years ago where he talked about his initial skepticisms and doubts, even after he met Swami. How did you deal with your own husband's skepticisms at that time about the man you've come to know as the Baba we all love?
Well, I don't think I ever thought that these doubts are permanent. I knew Swami is taking care and they will go, and this is part of our growing. It's not that I never had any doubts, not the kind of doubts he had, but mind is always wavering.
Sure.
The very first time we came, in end of 90, then our first trip to Prashanti, I know I had written a letter to Swami that my mind is ever wavering. And then we had bought 4 books from the ashram shop, and one of them, on the back cover, there was an answer to my letter, exactly in the same words that I had written to him. And then after a few days, I thought I'll read that again. And I only had 4 books, and those words were not there. Nothing was there. So I didn't understand at first. Then later on, much later, I knew that that was just what I saw at that time, because I needed to.
Wow.
So I think Swami, I knew, Swami's taking care, so it never upset me.
Great. Hold on now, we're going to come back over to Chit. Jody wants me to ask you, because it's a great question, when did you shift your focus from materializations to acceptance or even belief of Baba? Because he had you come to live here so early on, while there must have been still some doubts in your mind.
Well, I think it is probably not exactly like that.
Okay.
What happens is that, perhaps I'll tell you a little bit about my first interview I had with Baba.
Yeah.
And that was in November 91. We had already started center in April 91. And in November, I had an invitation from some Sai officials in London. They wanted us to come to Baba's birthday.
In November.
And yes, and that was a big day, because there was the opening of the super specialty hospital, and the Prime Minister of India was coming, was inaugurating. And so when they invited us, they actually came to our house, and I said no, politely, because I really don't like crowds, and I had been told that this birthday will be very, very crowded. So I said no, and then when they went away, Hema said to me, well, you know, I think you should go. I mean, it's a great opportunity, because of course she believes in Baba, therefore she can take that view. And so she convinced me that I should go. So I rang them back. I said, is that offer still open? Can I have an invitation for the super specialty, you know, opening, etc.? Which they did. So I got an invitation. I came here, and that was good. And then on 27th of November, after the birthday, one morning Swami said to me in darshan, where were you? And he said, go. So I go inside. I'm alone. And as soon as I went in, of course, the first thing I decided to do was take Pad Namaskar. And as I was taking the Pad Namaskar, there was that absolutely feeling, you know, overwhelming feeling of bliss that overcame me. Very powerful. I was transported to heavens, I could say. It was like that. And, you know, I have to admit that I never had that feeling again.
Well,
that was the
okay.
only time.
Well, maybe once is enough.
Perhaps. But it wasn't, as I might tell you later on, because of the doubts. So anyway, I had that, and he just said to me, study to be steady.
Study to be steady.
Be ready at 4. And that was the end of the interview, and I was out. And of course, you know, there used to be a darshan in the afternoon, which were at 4 o'clock. So of course I'm thinking, well, maybe he meant he'll call me again. Well, he did.
Oh.
But I was the last one to be called. There were about 30 other people in front of me. So, you know, I go into the interview room, all the people are sitting inside, and it's hardly, you know, you could even hardly open the door, one of the doors. So I managed to open the door because I was the last person to enter, close the door behind me, sat there. And, you know, and I'm quite small, so I'm sitting right at the back, and there's some Westerners in the front, you know. So I thought, oh, well, Baba can't even see me, never mind. So he sat in the chair. The first thing he said, Aggarwala, what do you want? I was absolutely, you know, stunned. So first of all, he called my name. Secondly, you know, I didn't know what to say. I hadn't prepared myself, you know, what do I want? Why am I here? To be honest, I hadn't reflected on those thoughts. So suddenly, you know, nothing came out of my mouth, and I said, Swami, spiritual growth. And then came the crux. He said, what do you mean by spiritual growth? And I looked at Swami because, to be honest, you know, you say I want spiritual growth, and I don't know what is spiritual growth. I couldn't answer at all. Nothing. You know, I just sort of just kept looking at him. Then of course he knew that I won't be able to answer this question, although I'm asking this. So and then he gave us a little sermon about spiritual growth, and he told me everything is nothing, nothing is everything, and many other things. And at the end of that, he started waving his hand in circular motion. And, you know, I'm sitting down there, and although there are tall people, but I'm looking to the side to see what is going on, because it's my first time, I don't know anything what is going to happen. And I see something growing out of the palm. And there's a ring at the end of this, which had actually come out of the palm very slowly, like the atoms are depositing and is growing. I saw that.
So you're watching it grow out of his palm.
Actually, I watched it grow. And I was just wondering, you know, the scientific mind, why is it not falling? It's not falling. So I think it must be coming out of his hand. God, that's you know, something amazing that's slowly coming out of that. And then suddenly he turned his hand upside, you know, sort of straight, with the palm up, and there's the ring. And then, you know, obviously a lot of the people in the room is thinking, oh, well, who's going to get this one? You know, I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of you know, you see their expression on the face, and I have no idea, of course. So I just kept sitting. I wasn't even looking. And Baba said, come, Aggarwala, come. So he called me, and I was right at the back, so I walked to
You're in the back of the room with 30 people, and you walk up to the front.
I walked to right to his feet, and then he said, so I still don't know whether what he's going to do with this, but he said, give me your hand. So suddenly, you know, I extended my right hand, and he put that ring on my right hand. And actually, that is the ring which he put like this on my right hand.
Would you do me a favor and very close, very slowly, just bring it up towards the lens here. Very, very slowly. I've learned that. Bring it up a little bit further. Keep moving up towards so people can see this. Now, a little bit more. This is what people call the 9-planet ring?
Correct.
Okay. And what's the significance of this ring, and what did you feel like once you found it on your finger?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know anything. I just thought, well, it's a very nice ring. Actually, what happened was that day before, there was a gentleman sitting next to me in darshan line, and he happened to have a similar ring on his hand. So I just sort of, he told me, oh, the Baba materialized it. And it looked very nice, that's all. I didn't know anything about the significance. And I just, secret thought came through my mind, oh, that would be nice. And this, after he materialized, this thought, actually still I didn't remember that I had said that to myself. But later on when I came out of the interview, oh my God, Baba knew that I had this secret desire to have that ring on my finger. That's
he also knew your name. How did he know your name?
Well, you know, I thought that my friend must have told him, to be honest.
But there's probably 80,000 people there, and that would have been pretty
No, my
unlikely.
friend who had brought me here, the doctor, you know, the doctor friend, I thought he must have gone and told him, so that he'll convince me that, oh, he knows my name. That's really what I was thinking, to be honest.
Until you later found out, maybe years later, that few people
that is
on
not
this earth have normal access to Sai Baba.
It's absolutely not possible. Yeah. He himself is sitting line number 20 or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something he's sitting in the front or anything. So. But anyway, so, and then I was thinking, the thoughts going through my mind, again, the scientific mind coming in. And I thought, well, you know, he knows the size of my finger, that it fits nicely, because after he put the ring on me, he went like this. He just tapped it. Fits you beautifully, he said. And I thought, gosh, he knows the size of my finger. But then, this is just going back a little bit. You know, when I came out of the interview, I took it out of my right hand, and I put it. See, it's very tight. I mean, it just fits nicely, so that it won't fall off. But then I took it out of the interview room, and I put it in my left hand.
And why would you do that?
Because I like to wear my wedding ring on my left hand and not in the right, you see. So I put it on there. And then it just fell off, like this. You see, it still does. It just goes. You see how long,
he knew
you see
what
how
size
it comes
to make
out?
it for
It
which
falls
finger.
off.
Yeah.
So then I thought, my God, he knew. I thought that it was an accident that I put my right hand, but he knew that I'm going to extend my right hand. He made it for the right hand and not for the left hand.
I actually extended my right hand, and he batted it away for my left hand.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he knows best.
Well, yeah. I mean, he wanted it to be on my ring finger,
Right.
for my wedding ring finger.
Right. So I obviously, you know, different things for different people. What he knows what is the best. So anyway, so these are the kind of thoughts, and then he took one by one all the people, or you know, family by family, into the private room as he normally does. And at the end, I was thinking, so would you take me inside? Because by now I had accumulated some questions in my mind. You see. So anyway, so I was thinking, and then I was the last one to be called. So he took me in, and then the first thing he said to me, Aggarwala, out with your paper. And I said, oh, yes, of course. I got my questions written down. So I put my hand. It wasn't as if the paper was hanging out of my pocket. So I had to put my hand in. I got the question, and I opened my paper, and I looked at it, and Baba said, come on. And I'm still looking at my paper, because I was reading the first question and thinking, and my first question said, if you are God, then prove me your divinity by materializing something for me. Well, he'd already answered that. So I'm still reading the first question, wondering, God, he's already answered that. I can't ask that now. So I went on to the second question, third, fourth, fifth, sixth question. Within few minutes, very quickly, tuck, he answered those, and he said, out, you know, because he knew that that's what I was there for. So that was it. So that was my first interview. So, but at the end of the interview, I said, I have seen ring materialize with my own eyes. I know he is what he professes to be. And I was convinced about the divinity. So that is why things moved fast. But then, talking about doubts, which you mentioned earlier on, the thing is, the mind is very powerful. It goes for the material world, it goes for things, you know, and doubts can arise in the mind. And this is exactly what happened to me. To cut a long story short, because I have many instances of this, that on average you could say that my doubts were completely gone, I'm totally with Baba, and I know he is divine. And then 6 months later, I sort of think, well, he's got 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 eyes, he's just like me and you, he's just walking. What's the difference? How can he be God? And I start having doubts. And within a flash, he will clear my doubts. Within a flash. I mean, in the sense, for example, this ring, the first thing that happened to me, 6 months later, I'm still having doubts. I mean, I'm saying on average 6 months, maybe 8 or 9 months, sometimes maybe less. He called me for an interview, so I was lucky to be blessed with an interview. I go inside, and then I'm sitting right at his feet. I'm the first one. And he sort of extends his hand and starts pulling the ring out of my finger. And I thought, that's a very strange thing to do. He just comes and, like he's trying to take my ring away. I thought, well, maybe he wants it back, all right, you can take it. And he was quite tight because in the right hand, you see. So, and he said, what's wrong? And then I suddenly realized, my God, I've lost a pearl, because one of the quadrants is the pearl. Is that gone? So he said, what's wrong? And I thought, oh my God, he knows that I've lost the pearl. That's why he's pulling the ring out, So you see, my doubts are already clearing. And so he takes that, and he says, oh, okay. And he showed it to one or two devotees. Have a look at his ring. Oh, Swami, there is one stone is missing. And then he shows to another one. Yes, Swami, one stone is missing. He gets the ring back, and he holds it in his hand, and he blows in 3 times. And suddenly, obviously the pearl appears, and he shows to somebody, look at this, and they say, hand it back to Aggarwal. So he gave it back to me, and I looked at it. I said, my God, yes. Within that second, that pearl has come. So I'm looking at it, and because it was very shiny, and Baba said to me, oh, well, while I was at it, trying to repair your pearl, fix your pearl back, I polished it as well. Because it's nice and shiny. I mean, I have my doubts a few minutes ago. He calls you for an interview straight away and clears your doubt in a flash.
Well, the reporter in me, and for a long, long time, the doubting Thomas in me, always wanted people who had stories like that to sort of reenact it. Did you literally mean that he would just put it in front of people, holding it between his fingers, and blow on it, just like you suggested?
Absolutely, because remember that I had doubts before he called me for the interview. So my eyes are totally on his fingers.
So it
that
didn't
ring
come from
must
anywhere,
not,
there was nothing hidden on top of it, you saw it happen.
There is no question that, my eyes will be, looking like an eagle, that because I'm having doubts.
Yeah.
And therefore there is no way that a ring had gone anywhere or anything had happened to it. It was exactly in that. It's come from that devotee who handed it back to him. He's holding between his thumb and the finger, and he blowing and immediately handing over.
And people saw all of a sudden that stone appear.
Absolutely.
Shiny
Absolutely,
stone.
yes.
One time I had doubts and he knew it, and there's 15 of us from Cleveland walking in, and as everybody's sitting down, he walks up to me, and right out of his mouth is a question right directly to my face. How is wife's left eye? Well, there was no way on earth anybody in our group, let alone anybody in Prajanti, let alone anybody would have told Baba that she had a surgery on her left eye 6 months before we came there.
There we go.
I almost said, Baba, who told you this?
Well, actually, virtually, it happened with me too. Similar things, many things. I mean, one of them, once we were thinking of selling our house, etc. And he said in the interview, oh, you're worrying about your house? And I thought, unfortunately, I would think there's only one other person who knew about my house. And that was somebody who was very close to Baba, who was in the ashram. And I thought, oh, he must have told him. My doubts were like that. But of course, he didn't know anything about selling. He knew that I have a house, but,
So how did you ultimately resolve your doubts?
As I said, when the doubts come, it so happens that he will create certain circumstances in which he will clear doubts, like this one I told you. Now, I have so many other stories to tell.
All right, tell
if we had the time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For example, I'm sitting in darshan line, and I start having doubts again.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll come and go. You see, now that morning when I got up, because Baba had materialized a watch for me, it was a gold-plated watch. And in the night, I always take my watch off, put it by the bedside, and in the morning I got up and I'm putting my watch on that day, And I happened to notice, because usually, you don't see the back side of the watch because it's probably dark, you get up and you just put it on. It's a sort of automatic reflex action. So I happened to see, maybe the light was on or something, and I happened to see it was all kind of black and the golden plating, etc. come up, and it was all looking really awful. And I thought, God, this is a very cheap watch Baba gave me. This thought came. I mean, I'm sorry, but I have to admit the facts that that's the thought that came to me. Well, okay. So I put it on. Baba called me for the interview. Same morning, I've just got up, 7 o'clock interview. I go there, and first thing he said, Aggarwal, that watch you're wearing is terrible. He materialized it previously. Oh, he says it's a very cheap watch, he says. And then he goes and waves his hand, and there comes a beautiful golden watch, which is studded with diamonds and ruby.
Oh my goodness.
And he puts it, on my hand. So, well, where's the room for doubts now? Is it this morning? I've not spoken to anyone. I mean, I haven't spoken to Hema or anybody.
But you alone had those thoughts earlier.
Only I had the thoughts. And to be honest, I'd forgotten about them. It's just a thought that came to my mind.
Sure, yeah.
In fact, afterwards, a bit ashamed of myself, thinking that Baba produced a cheap watch.
Well,
but the thoughts were there.
Seems to me you did that.
But they're gone. Yeah. By the time I sat there, thoughts were not there anymore. But there we go. So, see, like that, many instances. I go to darshan, I have thoughts, and one day there's one man sitting next to me. He's a doctor also, and he starts, and I don't know him. I sat next to him many times, but I don't know him much. He hardly ever talks to me. And suddenly he starts telling me a story. He says, I was very close to Baba. I've been brought up with Baba. My cousin was great Baba devotee, and Baba used to visit our house there. It's talking about long time ago. And he said, Baba will come and bath sometime, will eat with us. I've grown up with Baba. He knows everything about Baba. And he said, one day, he said, I was sitting there. I went to my cousin's house, and he said there was a long row of ants. And at the end of that, there was a big sack full of the groundnuts. And they were all going to the groundnuts. He said, eating the groundnuts. So he said, we were sitting there, and Baba comes and says, hey, look at this row of ants. And the lady of the house, she was a bit worried. Oh gosh, they're going to eat all our groundnuts. So Baba just said, oh, don't worry, and he just blew on it, and all the ants disappeared. This is the story he told me. I didn't ask for a story. He never told me a story before. I'd hardly ever know him, and he just started telling me this. And then I knew that he has been sat next to me and tell me this story because he wants to clear my doubts. Yeah. So they were just doubts. So I think in a way I'm saying these doubts were there, but they were probably not, they didn't have a very strong foundation.
Yeah. Let's ask Haim about whether or not doubts ever comes into her life.
Absolutely fantastic. I think, to be honest, we've said often that, my goodness.
Jody, we are grateful to Vibronics.
One day, but no ideas about.
Yes, right, yeah. So.